I was actually born at 158 Bridgend Road, Maesteg, and the month was October. It was October the 24th, 1935, a lot of years ago. My life as a young man wasn't really a very happy one. It was perhaps due to the many domestic upheavals that were happening at our home in those days. I haven't got very good memories of my young days. And what was worse, as I began to talk, it was discovered that I had a serious impediment in my speech. I stuttered, and I can't remember a time when I didn't have it. And it plagued me all through my school days. And my life, I say at that in time, wasn't a very happy one. One instance that I remember to this day with such clarity was one night I went outside of the house when my mother and father started quarrelling. And I remember crouching down underneath the windowsill of the living room window out in the garden, and I crouched down and I could hear the shouting, and I was greatly affected by this. That has actually stayed with me for all these years. And I suppose the first break into a life of happiness, if happiness is what I was needing, was when I left school. I left school at the age of 15. I sought work. I tried to get onto the railway. Now, I suppose it is, the dream of many young men to be an engine driver or an engine fireman. It used to be in the days of steam anyway. And I tried to get onto the railway, and lo and behold, I was successful. And after passing 2 medicals, one at Newport and the other one was an overnight one at Swindon. And the joy was that my name was called as one of those who was successful in his application. No doubt about it, I was in love with steam locomotives, and anything about the railway was such a joy to me. I was entering into a new phase of my life. Really speaking, I had always wanted to get away from home. I wanted to get away from my family life because it wasn't a very happy one. And this opportunity to go to Slough was, I felt, just what I was wanting. And so I began the next stage of my career in Slough, that's near London. I was so happy, I was so contented, but now I was living at a railway hostel, and I was mixing with other people other firemen. And so we began to drink. I used to go out with the other firemen, and we used to go to the pubs of Slough. And sometimes if I was on a weekend off work, I would go up to London. Now, I shan't say the things that I got into in London, but you can well imagine. Here's a young man from the Welsh valleys going up to the city of London, where there was so much to attract my attention. And I began to drink. I began to drink heavily. It was such a wonderful period of my life. But alas, that didn't last for too long, because one day we were heading on a fast train, and the signals, which were green right along the track, we had green signals all the way, and then I noticed that one of the signals, when we were nearing Slough station, we weren't going to stop at Slough, we were going straight through. And I noticed that one of the signals was orange, which means slow down, caution. And then when we slowed down, just when we passed through Slough station, the signal was red. And obviously that means to stop. So we stopped the engine, and my regular driver, Jack Matthews, he was wondering, looking at his watch and wondering, what's the reason for this stop? And then I saw, coming from Slough Sheds, a fireman was coming across the rails, and he came to our engine, climbed on board, and he said to me, Yorrie, you are called for at the shed foreman's office. And I said, what for? He said, no idea. But he said, it's the railway police are there wanting to see you. So I'm sent across to relieve you on this train. So I, calming across the rails, as I made my way back to Slough Shed, I went into the office, and there were these two police officers, and they asked me my name. I told them, Yorrie Richards, and they said, well, we've got some bad news which we have received from your home in South Wales. Your father has passed away. When I reached home, there was the coffin, because in those days in Wales they used to keep the coffin in the front room. And there was my dad. I cried over my dad because I loved my dad so much. He was a miner, and I cried over him. Now I was home, back in my stag again. I think it was a very cruel blow, actually, but I was made to believe that I was now responsible for the upkeep of my mother and the family. Now that meant that I would eventually have to resign from the railway. You can imagine what that meant to me. I felt my life had come to an end. I would have nothing left. It was a devastating blow to me. But then I found work as a miner. Like father, I suppose, like father, like son. I was now training to be a coal miner. I was now going to dig coal instead of burning it. I felt totally alone. I felt totally devastated. My life meant nothing to me. And the sheer boredom that gripped my life, even as a young man. I was still a very young man, and I had nothing to live for, and certainly nothing to die for. So the drinking continued. Going out on a Saturday morning, sometimes you might think this a bit strange or a bit extreme, but I used to eat salt so that I would stimulate a thirst. And by the time that the public houses opened on a Saturday morning, I was ready for drinking. And me and my friend Billy Evans used to eat salt. And I remember sitting on a hill near my home in my state, looking down onto the valley below. And across the valley, I could see the colliery, St. John's, where I worked at that time. And I could see the great slag heap across the valley. And I would think to myself, surely that is not all that I've got to look forward to. Is that all that my life is going to be made up of? And I could see no way out. And I got from bad to worse. By now, I was becoming a noted drunk around the place. People in my state knew me for what I was. But I couldn't stop.